So welcome to the meetup. So this one is going to be all around our Z Champions. So I'm Sophie Green and I'm a developer in IBM Kicks. So what is Mainframers? So I'm assuming a lot of you have been to some of our events before, but we tend to always have new people, so we'll just quickly recap. So initially, our Mainframers Meetups was a local event that we ran in London. So it was an evening event that was free for people to attend and come and quickly learn some short lightning talks type style presentations. You can quickly learn some short things, but then it was also largely focused around just being able to talk to other people in the mainframe industry, because we all have very similar things we're interested in and we all just want to build a community and be able to learn from each other. But it's now been exactly a year since we've had to move online, which has been very exciting. So now we're able to host a lot more people and we're getting people from around the world now and we're able to have speakers from across the globe. So it's all very exciting. And I think one thing to bear in mind with our Mainframers group is that this isn't an IBM event or anything. This is purely a community-driven event, and it's organised by a whole bunch of people from different organisations. And key to that is that we want to get more people involved in helping to run the events. So we have the meetup page, we have a Slack channel, or a Slack workspace. We've got LinkedIn and Twitter, so do please come and find us on any of those channels. If you join us on Slack, that would be really helpful for you to raise questions and talk to us outside of these events as well, so we can carry on conversations. And we really want other people to get involved. So we really want to grow the community. We want to have this community led by a bunch of different people. And one way we want to try and encourage that is that straight after this event today, so this event's going to be an hour long, and straight after this event at 6:30ish, we're going to leave this WebEx call open and we're going to have an open planning meeting. So we're going to have a meeting where we're going to start talking about how we want to run the meetings going forward, what we want to be in the next meeting, and things like that. So if you're free after this call, please do think about trying to join us and just hang about for a bit longer, see what we're about, see if there's any way you can help run these events going forward and get involved further. So our speakers today, we have Alex, Marcus, Ezriel and Ricki. So we're focusing this event all around Z Champions. So Alex is going to teach us what is the IBM Z Champion, what is the program, how do you get involved, what leads you to be a Z Champion. And then we have our 3 IBM Z Champions that have all been appointed and given the title for 2021. So we'll get to hear all about what it is that they do for the community, why they have kind of earned that title. So please put any questions in the Slack channel as we go, and also if you don't have Slack, if you just put them in the WebEx chat, and then I can ask questions to the speakers as we go. So first up, we have Alex. So if I just pass across to you, if I just stop sharing.
All right, thank you. Let me take the screen and we'll get started. So thank you all very much for coming today. Today, I want to talk about the IBM Champions program, more specifically the Z program. And for those of you who have never met me, which is probably a lot of you, my name is Alixander Laffredo-Deitrich, and I'm the IBM Z Champions Program Manager. Now, there's a ton of different programs within the Champions program. So we have Z, woo, we're the best, awesome. But I may be biased. We also have data and AI and quantum and all sorts of different champion programs. So if there's something that you're interested outside of Z, chances are there's a Z Champions program for you and a whole host of different champions that would love to work with you and get to talk to you. And if you have any questions about this going through this presentation or something that pops up afterwards, please feel free. You can Slack me at alexander.laffredo-deitrich. You can email me directly at alexander.laffredo-deitrich@ibm.com or talk to me on LinkedIn. at linkedin.com/in/AJ Laffredo. Awesome. So what are IBM Champions? What are IBM Z Champions? We say that the IBM Champions are experts and thought leaders around IBM products, offerings, and technology, and they are driven to share their knowledge and expertise to help others. IBM Champions are often answering questions, creating content, running user groups and events, and helping others in the community to better understand the possibilities or investment in IBM offerings brings. In other words, they're the tip of the spear. IBM Champions are the tip of the spear when it comes to spreading influence about our various products and services. They're the tip of the spear when it comes to sharing knowledge. They're the tip of the spear when it comes to creating content and leading groups, a whole lot more. Overall, they are all about helping others. And I'll get into more about exactly how the champions do that. But I'm sure if you've ever searched a tech blog or looked at a tutorial or maybe competed in a competition, most likely there has been an IBM champion that has contributed to that article or written that article or had their fingers in that pie in some way, shape, or form. They're all about building that community and helping people out. So basically, in other words, they rock, and they rock a lot. So you know a little bit about what the champions do for the community, but what about if you were to become a champion? What would you get out of it? Well, we have a whole bunch of events throughout the year, and the champions get invitations and discounts and VIP perks to those events, at least the ones that are sponsored by IBM. They get swag, so shirts and mugs and water bottles, things like that. They also get a digital credential to show that they're champions. So a lot of the champions, you may see that they have this little star swirly thing on their LinkedIn that's verified by IBM and backed by us. They also get visibility and recognition and special networking opportunities, exclusive online access to our online communities, exclusive access to our product development team. So sometimes we'll show them some really cool up and coming stuff within IBM a little bit earlier than we would normally spread the word to the general public. We also promote their content through our various channels. I consider myself not the program manager, but like their professional hype man. They get special recognition in their community profile. And of course, what else can be the warm, fuzzy feeling of helping others? I mean, holy cannoli, it's a lot. So if this is something that maybe you would be interested in, there are a couple qualifications that we do ask potential champions to meet. And I'll share links that get a little bit more in depth. I just kind of wanted to share this on a high level in case you're interested. But these basic qualifications are to evangelize and advocate for IBM, share their knowledge and expertise, grow and nurture the community, expand their reach across the IBM portfolio. And of course, we love, love, love having feedback on our products and designs, and we really value the champions' input to that because we know how, I'll say, dedicated, for lack of a better term, they are to the technology. They really want to see things be better, and so we really value their opinion. And so if you want to apply, you can nominate yourself or someone else at this link, developer.com or developer.ibm.com/champions. And so some more specific examples of what championism is. We've had plenty of speakers at various events. I know Share is one of these events, and we have a bunch of champion speakers slotted up. Tech Channel, if I ever want to see what the champions are up to, I can just hop on Tech Channel, and there's just a whole host of information that they're sharing with the general public. I know we have a couple champions that host their own podcast. For those of you who know Reg Harbeck, I had the honor of being one of his guests on his podcast. Master the Mainframe. If you have seen Master the Mainframe, we've had a couple of the IBM Z champions be judges on that competition, and then also mentor a bunch of students. We have a mentorship program called Vets in Tech that we're organizing that are helping people coming out of the military, transitioning into the workforce. And this is just a small, small tip of the iceberg. Many of these aren't even Z specific. They're technology driven in general. They can be Z specific, but really the spirit of being a champion is just helping people in the tech world. And yeah, so if you have any questions, here's some links and resources. So more about what a champion is, if you do want to nominate yourself or someone else. And then, of course, we have our IBM communities. We have a champion blog. So if you just want to read about the really cool things that our champions are doing, you can hop on there. And of course, as always, feel free to reach out to me. I have my email on here and my Slack and other contact information at the beginning of the show. So that's all I got. And I believe our next presenter is
Marcus.
Is Marcus. Yes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I haven't got a presentation to give. I've just got a little few minutes to chat. That's what I was asked to do, and that's what I'm going to do. I thought I'd start off with my my career path and how I got to where I am today. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, Aberystwyth to be precise, on the west coast of Wales, I did a degree in computer science, and I had a sandwich year, which is an industrial placement year in British Steel, and they had a 3080 mainframe, IBM 3080, eventually upgraded to a 3090 from then a 3084, then a 3090. That's showing my age. And that was completely different from anything that I had seen before. I was used to home computing, playing games. When I went to college, I learnt Unix, and we had these great big white Sun workstations, which were absolutely stunning. And then to go to a smelly steelworks where the only IT equipment that were in front of us were literal green screens, two colors, green and black, 3270s, was a bit of a culture shock. After they'd introduced me into the joys of TSO and ISBF and accessing the mainframe, they gave me a color screen, and we had a full 8 colors, including black. And that's where I started my journey down mainframe. After I graduated, I went back to the same company. They thought I didn't break anything sufficiently for them to not invite me back. And that was it. I started to learn COBOL. After a while, I thought, hang on, we're using this database, we've got this programming language, we've got hundreds of programs, and there's no way of knowing what programs are affected by a database change, or what database files are affected by a program change. So I wrote this little bit of IT for IT, a little system which just scanned program listings in batch and built a dictionary of a cross-reference dictionary of tables, files, and programs. And one of the systems programmers from the data center noticed that I was doing this and said, let me drag you over to the data center where you can be a systems programmer so I can keep my eye on you. And that was really an interesting experience. I was there for a few years. I learned everything about that they could throw at us: DB2, KICS, VTAM, MVS, putting fixes on call, working, actually seeing the mainframe quill, and it was row after row after row of white and blue boxes. And then after I left, I went to the data center second site, the disaster recovery site, and by this time they'd replaced it all with an EC12, and all of those rows and rows and rows of white and blue whirring machines were replaced by a single solitary black fridge freezer sized machine. Yeah, so that was my introduction into mainframes, and that was the progress with which IBM had made. And so moving fast forward on, I'm now a lead product developer for BMC Software, having dallied around with being a DBA for 20 years at a major high street bank. And I now work on DevOps. I develop software to improve other developers' productivity on developing on the mainframe. I've written blogs and I've done a podcast with my colleague Stuart, who's I've noticed has joined the call. And it's been an interesting journey. And one of my mentors at BMC, Jim D, suggested that I should, after all of these presentations that I've done in international DB2 user groups in IDUG, in Rotterdam and Malta and all these funky places, that I should put myself forward as an IBM champion. And to my surprise, I was accepted. And so it continues. I help out at the GSE UK conference that's run every year. I share the responsibility of leading the DB2 stream. So, well, I noticed that Mike, one of my colleagues, is on, DB2 colleague is on the line as well. And we're always open to receive presentations or talks, or even just short flash talks on whatever it is that you do as IBM mainframers. So I would recommend that you get involved in GSE if you're not already. Join things like, or follow up on things like the Open Mainframe project, which is a brilliant project to open source the use of the mainframe. It's just fun, and I've had the opportunity recently of talking to CTOs and developers from across the UK who don't work on mainframe, and when I mentioned that I do work on mainframe, their eyes pop out, their jaws hit the ground, and they're like, "Are mainframes still around?" And these are like CTOs of UK companies. Do mainframes still exist? Yeah. And then I explain what the mainframe is about, and multiple LPARs and disaster recovery and availability and performance, and how you can swap out memory and CPUs while the machine's running. It's like changing the oil of a Ferrari while you're doing 120 down the M4 and not losing any performance or picking up any speeding tickets. So the mainframe is a great environment to work in, and I'm honored and privileged to be an IBM champion. And this is what I'm doing at the moment, is wandering around the internet, telling people about mainframes, blogging and podcasting, and doing my day job of helping developers develop more quickly and safely on the mainframe. And that's me. I'd like to hand over to Ezriel.
Thanks a lot, Marcus. So I'm going to follow your tone. I'm Ezriel Gross. I'm a principal solutions advisor at Rocket Software. And if I go back over my history of how I ended up in computers just to begin with, is when I started in college, I was going to be a pharmacist. To be honest with you, I was pre-med. I was taking all kinds of courses. And I liked the field, but you know, it really didn't catch on with me that well. I had an opportunity to spend a year overseas study in another country, and so I took that opportunity, went to this other country, and enrolled in university there for a year. And as part of the curriculum, because there was a language barrier, let's put it that way, there were only a few courses offered in English. So based on the courses I could take in English, one of them was computer science, right? It was a 101 course in computer science. And I have to admit, when I left this country, obviously we already had the old green screen 3270 terminals, right? I only found that out later on. But in this other country, they were still using punch cards. So I had my fun playing around and punching out programs on punch cards. Oddly enough, the instructor of the course noticed that I was writing all these extra programs on the side, right? And he was wondering, you know, why is this guy writing all these other programs? Because I've always had a mathematical background, so I always wanted to play with stuff. And back then, getting a computer to do the work for me sounded like a fun thing to do. So I started writing all these programs, and the guy looked at me and he said, you know what, I'll give you a challenge. Here's your challenge. Why don't you write a Roman numeral program, something that converts a regular number to Roman numerals and back again, yeah? And if you can get this done, I will give you my access card to the back room. And in the back room, we have green screen 3270 terminals. So this is a step up, right? Because imagine what it's like sitting there punching out cards. You make a mistake, the card's useless, or God forbid you drop the deck, or you piss off the operator and he moves a few cards out of sequence, right, and messes you up. So it would be a lot better to get to a 3270 terminal. So of course, I write this program that translates numbers from Roman numeral and to regular decimal and back again. And I don't think anything of it. I get access to the back room. I finish my year of study. I come back. I change my major to computer science, right? And of course, I'm going through a whole slew of courses. And as everybody knows who has a college degree, at some point in time toward the end of that degree, you have to take a couple of what they call master level courses, right? More experienced courses. So one of the courses I took was programming languages, yeah? And it was effectively the case study at the end of the class was pretty much to write a program in 6 or 7 different languages. Lisp, Snowball, I mean, crazy stuff. Pascal, C at the time was crazy. Yeah, it shows my age. But, and so you got to pick a whole slew of languages. And the program to write was something that translates numbers into Roman numerals, right? So I realized at that point that it wasn't a simple task. I did not go back and look at it. I was writing in Pascal at the time, but I wrote the program in 6 different languages, and one of them being in Pascal. And then I compared it to my original, and I noticed how far I got. Because the original program I wrote when I knew nothing about computers was probably 700 or 800 lines long, right? And when I was done with this program in this advanced level course, it was possibly 250 lines. So I realized what I learned about algorithms and programming languages, and I saw how far I got in just a couple of years. Well, further on, in college, I really liked assembler. So I ended up becoming an assembler recitation instructor, which was effectively, you get this big class, and then you're broken up into these smaller classes so that you can help people learn things. And assembler programming language was the thing I picked to become a recitation instructor for. So I really liked the system side of the house, right? This is at a time where applications were already being written in COBOL. So when I started my first job, I of course went right away for 3 months of training, and then I had an opportunity to either go into applications or systems. And because the systems gave me the opportunity to actually use my assembler skills and write some system level programs, I went into systems programming. And I did that for a couple of years. I ended up switching companies early on, and eventually went to a company that afforded me the ability to play with IBM new technology. And at the time, it was really exciting. So it was a product called CallPath at the time, which was just really interesting stuff. You could transfer a computer screen along with a phone call, that kind of thing. And I got really good at it. And IBM asked me to present at a conference. And I did that presentation, and apparently they thought I had a skill for presenting. And the next thing I knew, I was presenting all over the place. Well, it was about that time that I got picked up by a company back then called Circle Education, which effectively asked me to teach classes in the world of kicks. Now, I only had, at the time, let's call it 8 years of experience in the field, I didn't feel that I had the knowledge to become an instructor. But what I learned is generally when people are taking a course, they want to learn the intricate details about one particular topic, and therefore you could be an expert at that topic, not consider yourself an expert at that topic, but be an expert to the rest of the world. And so I started teaching class. I did that for 20 some odd years for Circle. And I also got into consulting. So I ended up doing various development projects for different companies, both in systems and applications. So I ended up becoming much more well-rounded in one particular area, and that is in the world of CICS, right? So I developed an expertise in systems and application programming. I could teach, I could present at conferences, and so it was only natural for me over time to get involved in some more of the user groups and the communities that allowed us to present what we knew at different conferences. And so today I'm very involved in Share and do GSE UK and some various other conferences, pretty much on request basis. If there's a particular topic that people want to hear about, I can develop a presentation relatively quickly. And because I have so many years of experience in education, I have a better idea of what I want to present and how people will learn a particular topic and will hopefully take that home and be able to do something with the information that I provide. So I guess it was a natural fit to sort of become a champion. And again, as Marcus mentioned and has been mentioned before by Alex, a champion is really somebody who promotes the community, right? IBM Z is here to stay. I'm looking at what I do, and I've heard the same story that Marcus told you about of CTOs and CIOs going, mainframes, do they still exist? Funniest part is I'm sitting on a plane, right? This is a true story. I'm sitting on a plane, and because I travel so much, I do get upgraded a lot, so I do get to sit in business class, and I managed to end up sitting next to a CIO of a major pharmaceutical company. I won't mention any names. Happened to have been sitting next to me on the plane, and we were chatting, and he asked me what I did, and I told him what I did, and we went back and forth a little bit, and I said, I work on mainframe software, right? Transaction processing. And he says, oh, that's really nice. Yeah, we used to have mainframes. We got rid of them a long time ago. And I said, no, you didn't. He says, what do you mean? No, we didn't. I'm telling you, I'm the CIO. I know we don't have any mainframes. And I said, buddy, I hate to tell you, I know you have mainframes, because what I knew and he didn't know was I was involved in a call because IBM will ask you to participate from time to time as a champion or help out customers. And I participated 3 weeks earlier with a call with that company on some of their KICS processing that wasn't going quite well. And here's a guy who's telling me he has no mainframe. So I said, you know what, you're a nice guy. And he happened to live in New Jersey. We were flying back to New Jersey. I said, here's the deal. Why don't you go back and you determine whether you have mainframes? And I believe you do, and you believe you don't. And we'll go to lunch, and the person who's wrong will pay for lunch, right? It's a very simple thing. And needless to say, he paid for lunch. Yeah. So it amazes me that people don't know what they're actually running in their environment at a management level. But the core of what runs our world are mainframes. I hate to tell everybody who thinks otherwise, yes, you can have Amazon Web Services, you can have all kinds of stuff that runs on middle tier platforms. But the core engine of everything today are still mainframes. I see it all the time. I get called in all the time. People don't want me to admit. I had a guy who said, "Oh, I see you're going to do a presentation. You're not going to mention us and all the disasters we had." And I said, "No, don't worry. I won't mention any company names and how I solve some of the problems." So there is a huge future in IBM Z. No question about it. My particular area is KICS. And being an IBM champion is not about being an expert today completely in a particular area. It's about promoting it. So if you can present at a conference, if that's your thing, that's certainly an opportunity to become a champion. But if you can't do presentations, you can certainly blog about things. If you're excited, right? And like I said, my love for computer science and what I do for a living keeps me excited about the field. And if you're excited about the field, then you're probably a champion, right? As long as you blog about it, talk to others, and pretty much help people in the community so that they can grow and you can learn from them as well, you're still a champion, right? So it's not about how much you have in terms of expertise, it's where you want to end up and how you want to learn moving forward, right? So that's kind of what I had to tell you today, and I'll turn it over to Ricki to continue.
Thanks, Ezriel. So I'm Ricki. I work for BMC, RSM Partners, Managed Services. We was acquired by BMC last year. So we provide services to various companies and basically manpower. So I will talk to you about my career, because my career isn't as long-winded as these guys. I'm fresh off the boat. I've been in the mainframe industry for 2 years. So I was at uni at Wolverhampton. I did my computer science. I finished that and went into what people would call traditional IT in terms of website design, phone systems, that type of thing. Very Linux, Windows. And I decided that I wanted a career change. I wanted to be more in the red tape and have more enterprise type of system knowledge. So that way I could, have a bit more grunt in the industry and not just be another web designer or something like that. So with that career change, I decided to do my master's to increase my knowledge and basically be more of a employable person in the industry. I thought that it was all about the qualifications and that type of thing. And then I stumbled across the mainframe. I'd never heard of it, really. I mean, most people hear of it, but you never actually see it, especially when you're at college and uni and that type of thing. So we had a career week at the uni, and a guy called Henry Krupa, he came in for a week, and we did a intro to mainframe course. So we did a bit of JCL, learned a bit of RACF, how to basically use a terminal. It seemed like I was going backwards, and it was really difficult to learn old style IT when I was coming from programming in C and C# and very much Android apps and things like that while I was actually doing my uni course. And that was all set up by Herb Daly. He was my lecturer, and he was very big in terms of knowledge and mainframe. And when he came in, we had a couple of guest speakers from various companies, and one of the speakers was Mike from RSM. So he came in and spoke about what RSM did and the fact that they were local. So I went to one of their open days, which was part of a Gen Z meeting, where they did presentations and workshops and that type of thing to get you involved more in IT, more mainframe sort of IT, where you learn Rex and things like that. So I attended that, and we also went to Hursley, and we had a tour around Hursley, and we did a bit of Master the Mainframe. Once I'd done that, we decided, there was a few of us that decided we were going to do a student society specifically for mainframes, because I mean there is a lot of various societies out there for Linux and Windows and all that type of thing, but there's nothing out there for mainframe, especially at my uni. Nobody really knew what a mainframe was. I mean, when I was being taught programming, I was told that COBOL was a dead language. And then lo and behold, as soon as I could come onto mainframe, it's, the biggest thing you'd need to know. So a few of us set that up. And we got that going. We did a freshers event where we had like a little stand and we had a couple of banners, and I basically showed them little snippets of Master the Mainframe and how it worked and got people excited. We ended up having 70 people sign up for the society, and we had throughout the year we had various guest speakers from IBM, Broadcom, BMC, and RSM, and we got them to get involved with the students and get them more into mainframe and get them to teach them what it is and why it's not a dead career and that type of thing. So once that had happened, I applied for RSM's MIT scheme, which is Mainframer in Training. So what happens was I got the job, and they put you on courses. So I did a bit of ZOS, I did some kicks, and I did some DB2. So I learned as I was working, which was, you know, it was good for me because I was finishing my master's dissertation at the same time. So with that, I decided, even though nobody at my uni knew what a mainframe was, apart from Herb, to do my dissertation in kicks, which was quite amusing when my examiner didn't really know what he was looking at. So Herb got involved, and he got a few people in the industry to look over my dissertation. So my dissertation was about a kicks abend manager. So if a kicks transaction abended, it would kick off a routine that would try and automatically fix it, whether it was restarting it or open and close files or various things like that. So I was doing that while I was learning as well, which was quite difficult, especially doing a master's dissertation. And while this was happening, I was doing the Master the Mainframe sessions with the students in the society. So I was staying very involved in that. We were also doing something called Aspire, which is a program to get younger kids into IT. It's like a charity thing. So Herb and a few people from the society got a school-age children on Master the Mainframe. So we got them to do that for a couple of days in a week. I also ran up the Gen Z meeting at the GSE in 2019, where we had speed networking and social drinks. So Gen Z is more about the younger mainframer, you know, fresh in, doesn't really know that much and wants to make connections with people in their own sort of stature and ask for help type of thing with their own peers. So that's my sort of career path into RSM. I mean, what I do at the minute is I would do what's called BAU. So I work for various different companies. So I'm like an outsourcer for staff type of thing. So I'm a kicks person. So for various customers, I will do kicks work, I'll do DB2 work, and I will do RACF work. So I work remotely anyway, so the pandemic hasn't really affected me as much. And I am planning on going on to things like kicks audits and all that sort of stuff. So if you've got any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll pass it over to Sophie.
Cool, thank you. I found all of them really interesting personally. I love that it's not about how much expertise you have, like it is about how much you help other people gain their expertise and bridge that link and try and get other people involved. So Ricki, are you still involved with the university? Do you do anything to try and encourage other people into the industry?
Yeah, so I still work with the society, and I work a lot with Herb to try and get more people into it. I mean, it's been very difficult at the minute, especially with the pandemic and, you know, people not going to uni and things like that. So it's quite slowed down quite a lot. But because I'm still on the student board, but because I left, I have to basically pass over all of my, because I was co-chair type of thing. So we're trying to pass it over to the newest students to get them more involved, but I am always in the background.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions for any of the speakers, please do put it in the chat or in Slack, and then we can ask it to them. So I guess one question we have for all three of you is, as a Z champion, if you were to speak to someone new to the mainframe, what would be the one piece of advice that you would share that you wish you had heard when you first started out? Any of you? You can fight for the mic if you want.
I would say where to start. I found it quite overwhelming when I first started because I didn't quite know what subsystems to go for, whether to go for the basics, learn JCL, learn Rex, that type of thing. So I would say write yourself a little development plan and work out where you want to go in terms of what interests you, whether you want to go DB2, IMS, Kicks, or, you know, a ZOS programmer or something, and then decide what route you want to go to, and then you can start looking where your career path will go, if that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I'll just pipe in and say that, you know, I had my son learn mainframe. He was doing some other stuff, and with the pandemic that occurred, right, the field that he was in was a little bit struggling. So I said, why don't you take a little bit of time and see if you can pick up what this mainframe's all about, right? So we found some free courses that IBM provide, and he did the Masters of the Mainframe class. He did it last year, and which was different than this year's. This year's is more interesting in terms of VS Codium and some other ways to connect to TSO and run jobs. But nonetheless, he did both of them, and I'm happy to say that he was able to get a job just recently as a junior sysprog on mainframe, and that he's working specifically learning some support for tooling that our company does. And interestingly enough, yes, he has a little bit of help, more so than others do, but I did show him where he could find more information on communities, right? So join the communities, ask questions of the people that you think are experts or you've heard about. We're all happy to help, right? We're here to ensure that this community continues long after we retire, right? So we may be just a little bit older in the field, but I anticipate, and I've seen, you know, applications move to other platforms, and people attempt to say, well, okay, you know what, I want to run this somewhere else, and they never seem to run as well. Even if they make it there, they don't seem to run as well. And so I think that it's a mindset change. But if you're trying to learn about mainframe in general, particular areas, or maybe you just want to get a broad view of what the different scope areas are, Masters of the Mainframe is a great place to start, and joining some communities so that you get and talk to people in the industry is the best way to move forward. It's my opinion.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the comments, and Michael Grossman said, I would say find a mentor. I think that's really important, to find somebody who's a couple of steps ahead of you in the journey to being a high priest of ZOS. But as Ricki said, you know, you need to know what it is that you're interested in. Is it communication? Is it security, hacking, hack the mainframe, RACF, learn about RACF? Is it databases? You've got DB2. Is it, there's just loads of stuff that you could get lost in on the subject of the mainframe. So find out what it is that you enjoy. You can program in C, C++. Python is now available on the mainframe, and that opens up machine learning, AI, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, what Ricki said, decide what you want to do.
I think that's a really good advice. I think especially the thing about getting a mentor as well is something that this group could be really helpful with. It might be hard to find a mentor within your organization, or you don't want to necessarily. So I think if we can all help each other out and reach out to each other via the Slack channel and things like that, we might be able to link some people up with each other, which would be good. So another question would be, what's one of the best opportunities that you've ended up involved in kind of by accident? Is there anything you've just kind of fell into or been nominated for and put forward for, and anything that's ended up good out of that?
Well, I got nominated for being a Z champion. I had no idea about it, and Herb basically nominated me and just told me, and then you know, a couple of weeks later, I got an email to say welcome to an IBM champion. I was like, thanks. So yeah, I sort of like fell into that one.
I'd just say networking. Go to events like GSE or IDEG. You can make lots of contacts there, and you can develop good friendships. And I've just through contacts and going to conferences like that with work, I've ended up being chairman of the DB2 stream or headhunted by BMC. Anything can happen. It's an exciting career.
Yeah, it's a community. That's the key, right? Whether we like to admit it or not, we spend quite a bit of time of our time working, physically working. If you don't love what you do, you got problems, right? If you take a look at people who are miserable in their jobs or miserable in general, and I won't name any, but it's generally because they don't like what they do. If you love what you do, the first thing you have to think about is to put the work down, right? So instead of working 12 or 14-hour days, right, you're taking some time to do your own thing, and that to me is, you know, if you're fighting to stop working, then you're enjoying what you do. And I think that makes life easier. And one of the things that helps that along, I think, is community. It's exactly what Marcus was saying. It's all these user groups and meeting different people and having conversations. That's how you learn and become an expert in a particular field, right? You hear experiences of others, right? Things that they ran into. They run into problems. They ask for advice. Maybe you can't answer it, but when they do get the answer, make sure you get the answer as well. And that's how you learn, right? And so for me, it's all about the community itself.
Yeah, I like to build off on that, and not as somebody who works technically with the mainframe, but somebody who helps organize communities. Before I was even the program manager, I'd been working as a go-to-market manager for Linux One, which is just mainframe that runs Linux operating system. And I started exploring the communities just to see what was out there. And like almost the second I started putting myself in the different Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups and trying to expose myself and see what was out there, like the community just was like, oh, you're part of us now. And it's like, hey, check all this cool stuff out. And so when it comes to the community aspect, really, Z has been the strongest one that I've ever seen out of the multitude of different disciplines that I've dabbled in. They're really excited about bringing people up. So if you're just kind of curious about, hey, should I check this out? Should I join? Please do, because they will welcome you with open arms, whether you like it or not.
Cool, thank you. So, do you have any thoughts on why so many people are unaware of the use of mainframes right there within their own organizations?
So I wouldn't say they're unaware, right? That they know that they were there, right? So most organizations know at some point in time they had mainframes, but the impression that something is old is bad is what's caused people to turn around and go, oh yeah, well, we used to run that, but we're a modern organization, so why would we run anything on a mainframe, right? That's from the past, right? But that's just ignorance. That's really what it is. Effectively, the advantages of the mainframe are, for example, and again, going back to even COBOL, just think about it. You have a program. Somebody wrote it, let's call it 40 years ago, 40 years ago. And it's been running ever since. It's had no problems, right? You can replace it, but what's the reason for that? I mean, it's certainly been debugged. It's been running for how long, right? Forever. So pretty much, you know, there are no bugs in the program. It's running fast, efficiently. Nobody's ever complained about it. What's the impetus to get rid of it, right? So one piece of software or another piece of software that does the same thing, to me, is exactly the same. So the only impetus that people are using to say, well, you know, we got to get off the mainframe, it's something old, is really about this group here. It's people. The only thing that causes most CTOs and CIOs to consider the removal of the mainframe is the inability that they have to get resources that are experienced in mainframe. And obviously, as business goes, people who develop courses, as I know I used to, aren't going to develop as many classes for a mainframe if nobody's going to come and take those courses, right? So this is just a shift that I think has been happening over the last couple of years toward going back towards Z, because you have all these well-written application programs that have been around for so long and have been working so well. As long as these companies feel that they can continue to support these systems, they have no reason to think about removing them from the mainframe, right? Because there's no advantage. Yes, we're using green screens, black and green, and yeah, we do use color now too, Marcus. Yeah, I'm aware of that. But 8 colors isn't much, right? But if you take a look at microservices, I'm running all the old applications that have been written 30 and 40 years ago, and the front end is Node.js. It's something else that is much more modern. So as long as the core backend systems keep working, why rewrite them? Would you spend money for absolutely no reason at all? Because that's what it'll do for you. It's going to cost you money to redevelop an application that has been working for the last 40 years. And then what are you going to have to show for it? The exact same application running on a completely different platform? What did it buy you? So at the end of the day, the only thing it'll buy you is maybe you'll have an easier time finding a resource that knows that particular area. Well, if companies would continue to do what they used to do 20 or 30 years ago, keep their people trained, hire people, make sure that there's a training path for them and a mentor, I agree with that as well, then there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. And that's my opinion on it.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm a developer, so I develop on Visual Studio Code on my PC, on my laptop, and that's just brilliant. It's a wonderful IDE, but it's got Zoe connections into the mainframe. I can FTP my files up. I can compile on the mainframe. I can edit stuff on the mainframe from Visual Studio Code, which is a very popular IDE. You can run, as Alex said, you can use the mainframe hardware to run native Linux on the bare metal with Linux One. You can run Docker and Kubernetes containers on a mainframe. All of the new buzzwords that everybody's developing in is now available on the mainframe. So the mainframe does evolve with technology.
You know what? I just have to jump in here. Ezriel, something you said hit my hot button, and I was just waiting for you to take a breath so I could jump in. You
Sorry about that,
mentioned,
Robert.
that's okay. You mentioned the perception of, well, it's old, it must be bad, and that is universally true, unfortunately, these days. But people don't stop to think. If you look at what's going on in technology today, if you've got a mobile phone or a smartphone that's a year old, man, it's obsolete, it's out of date. Same thing for a laptop, same thing for just about any other piece of equipment you own. If it's just a little bit old, boy, it's just not serviceable anymore. But people don't stop to think, how is it possible that a technology that was invented back in the 1960s essentially is still running the majority of the world's business? How does it get to be that old? You don't do that by getting it wrong.
That's right. Exactly right. And yes, we do keep up with the times. Like in the world of Kix, I've written some Node.js applications. I've certainly built some Java applications that run inside of Kix. So the technology is keeping up to date. So there's plenty of room for new stuff. I'm not arguing that. But a lot of the old stuff that works just fine, as long as there's somebody around to support it, it'll be around forever.
I think that's a pretty good note to end on. So if we can carry on some of these conversations over in Slack. One thing worth noting as well is that a few people have been posting in the job opportunities channel, people looking for different opportunities and things. So if people know of anything, that'd be a great way to help someone else out in the community. I think this has definitely pointed out to me that I definitely hadn't really thought about the Z Champions program much before, whereas now I'm aware that, I mean, I'm not going to apply because I'm IBM, but I'm now a lot more aware of what other people are doing in the communities, and that I should be thinking about if I can nominate other people or be able to help bridge that gap for other people. So I think that's something for a lot of people to be aware of. You might not necessarily want to put yourself forward, but you might know of someone else who's been really great and you want to nominate them next year. So that kind of thing is worth bearing in mind. So I think with that, we will come to an end. So if anyone was just wanting to stay on for this meetup, feel free to drop off now. Otherwise, we're going to move on in a couple of minutes to an open planning meeting. So if anybody is interested in hanging on, stay on this call and we'll all get involved in talking about how we want these meetings to go moving forward and what we want to be involved in future meetings and things like that. So for those of you that are dropping off, thank you and goodbye. And those
Thank
of you
you,
that
Sophie. Before you do drop off, like, can I encourage you just to maybe start on the follow-up and just hear what we've got to say? We really want to open this community up. The kind of, it's great hearing some of the vibrance on this meeting and the passion, and it's all about thinking about what you may have to offer the community, and also we're interested in what you may want from this community. So kind of both sides are going to be really interesting going forwards. And like today, it's been predominantly an IBM team that have put this on, but we realized we got to the point where we want to be broader than that. So it's gonna, we'll start, I don't know, we'll have about a minute break, but do encourage you to stay on, listen to what we've got to say. There's no commitment, but if you do want to be part of this journey going forwards, it'd be great to have you on board. So I'm going to stop recording from the meeting. Go on.
I just add to that, Matt, that it's also an opportunity to meet the people that are around here. So some of the comments that we've been getting in the chat is, how do I get to communities? How do I get to meet people? How can I find a job? This might be an opportunity for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really want to, I mean, I'll share again in a moment. We are an informal team. it's our approach is to be informal, friendly, encouraging. If you want to meet more people, then come and see if this is something that could be beneficial to you. So thank you very much to the speakers tonight. I'll say tonight for those in the UK. Today, really good to hear everything you've had to say. Some great, yeah, the passion really comes through. Inspiring stuff. And thank you for those that have joined in the chat. Again, that really helps. I guess, yeah, the richness of these events, and that's something we want to encourage and get more of going forward. So for those that are dropping off now, look forward to seeing you at future events. And for those that are staying, do hang on.